Hi, my name is Shelby Lindsay, and this is my ethical dilemma presentation. A quick about me is I work for the Chickasaw Nation as an early childhood interventionist. I'm married, and we have 2 children, 3 cats, and 3 dogs. I've worked in childcare for 10 years as a teacher, recently becoming an early childhood interventionist within the last year. This is my first master class, and I'm excited to be here. So ethical dilemmas, what are they? According to the National Association for the Education of Young Children, or NAEYC, an ethical dilemma is a moral conflict that involves determining how to act when an individual faces conflicting professional values and responsibilities. These can be 2 rights or they can be 2 wrongs. They have more than one possible solution that can be morally justified, and then I will discuss a few in the next slides. Okay, so ethical dilemma number 1 is a parent comes to you about not making their child take a 3-hour nap. The mother explains that the child napping for 3 hours makes them not want to sleep at night. The program has a policy that states the child or the children would not be made to sleep but would rest for the full 3 hours. The teacher recognizes that the child requires the rest to have a good afternoon and not be upset. Okay, so what's the ethical dilemma here? Well, we would have to choose between waking the child up early or letting them have the full 3 hours to rest. Who do we have responsibilities here? We have responsibilities to the child, first and foremost, that's in our care. And then we do have a responsibility to the family, because obviously something's going on where the child is not sleeping at night. And then you do have a responsibility to the children, the other children in the classroom, because if one doesn't take a nap, some children that don't rest well, rest whenever they're laying down, they're not always quiet or they can be disruptive, so that hurts the other children in the class, or possibly could hurt the other children in the classroom. So looking for guidance in the NAEYC Code of Conduct. Principle 1, which is above all, we shall not harm children. We shall not participate in practices that are emotionally damaging, physically harmful, disrespectful, degrading, dangerous, exploitive, or intimidating to children. We do not harm children. Principle 2 is, or 2.4, we shall ensure that the family is involved in significant decisions affecting their child. We want the parents to know that they have a say in what happens at the daycare. I think a justifiable course of action here is to, of course, include your director in your decisions. Like you want them to be in the know about what's going on and what the parent is asking of you, because the policy does state that they do have to rest for those 3 hours. We couldn't keep a child awake if they fell asleep during those hours. We're not going to go over and say, oh, you have to be awake. Like that's harmful to the baby and could be potentially emotionally damaging if they're upset about not being able to nap. So I think the best course of action here is to just inform the parent that the child, if they don't rest, like how their day kind of looks. Like they have a bad afternoon if they don't sleep. I feel like any parent's going to be like, oh, they need that nap. And then if not, of course, just involve your director and they can encourage you on what to do next. So the second ethical dilemma is a parent asks you if you could not let their 1-year-old child engage in messy play. She doesn't want her child going home in dirty clothes. So the ethical dilemma is that we know children learn through messy play. That's 1-year-old, that's how they're figuring the world out. So we know how important that is for them. We also can understand why a parent wouldn't want their children going home in dirty clothes, because maybe they're not going home. Maybe they're going to do something after they leave. You can understand not wanting them to go home dirty. Even if it's not their face and just their clothes, you wouldn't want your child going home like that. So who do we have responsibilities to? We, of course, have a responsibility to the child and then to the parent, but also the whole classroom, because if one, you don't want to just have one child left out, so you would have to just not engage in messy play for everyone if you don't want to leave a child out. Right? Some guidance from the NAEYC Code of Conduct is Principle 1, above all, we shall not harm children. We shall not participate in practices that are emotionally damaging, physically harmful, disrespectful, degrading, dangerous, exploitive, or intimidating to children. Of course, we don't harm children. And then ideal one would be to base program practices upon current knowledge and research in the field of early childhood education, child development, and related disciplines, as well as particular knowledge of each child. So that to me is everything. Practices change within child development. We know that. It changes all the time. Children change all the time. So we have to base our practices on what is current. And right now, that is that children learn by play. They learn by getting messy. They learn by getting their hands in it. They learn by smearing it through their hair, especially at 1. So to me, a justifiable course of action would be to change the child's clothes beforehand, before the messy play. Of course, you're going to want to run that by the parent because they'll have to be the ones that bring the extra clothes unless the center provides or even the teacher provides extra. I have done that as a teacher, so I understand. You could also do like a long bib that kind of covers the clothes. You would just want to make sure that their hair is cleaned up if they smear it through their hair, or that their face is clean, of course, and their little hands. That would be the best course of action that I can see. And also involve your director because they'll want to know that a parent is asking for a child not to engage in a certain play while in their care. Ethical dilemma number 3 is you have a 2-year-old who's biting. The parent is upset and wants you to call them when this behavior happens so they can come and discipline the child by spanking them. Okay, so a direct policy for the program states that no parent is allowed to spank their child while on property. Ethical dilemma here. This one's hard because you have an ethical dilemma to make sure the parents know about the incidents that happen while in your care. You obviously have a responsibility to the child who's biting, and then the parent, and then the other children who are being bit. So the ethical dilemma to me would be, do we call the parents and have them involved in the situation, or do we just have them sign the paper after the day is done? This one's hard. This is a hard dilemma. Some guidance from the NAEYC Code of Conduct would be, above all, we shall not harm children. We shall not participate in practices that are emotionally damaging, physically harmful, disrespectful, degrading, dangerous, exploitive, or intimidating to children. Okay, so ideal 2 is to acknowledge families' child rearing values and their right to make decisions for their children. That's hard. And then principle 111 is when we become aware of a practice or situation that endangers the health, safety, or well-being of children, we have an ethical responsibility to protect children or inform parents and or others who can help. So, justifiable course of action in this case. This one's hard because parents do have a right to discipline their children how they see fit. There is a fine line in what we know. I think in this situation, it would be best to have your director in on a meeting with this set of parents and to give them the information of how potentially damaging spanking can be to some children. just giving the resources on that particular discipline. And then also, you have to keep the parents in the loop. Like that cannot, they have to know what's happening with their child. There's all kinds of policies in place that you know, when there is a behavior presented, even if they're not the child who was bitten, who's going home with a mark, you still have to know, like you still have to send a paper home stating that that child did bite. So like I said, just you have to keep the parents in the loop, letting them make their own decision on how to discipline their child, as long as they're that fine line is not crossed. And then of course you can always give out resources as to why that particular discipline could possibly be damaging to children of a certain age, or of any age really. Okay, so my conclusion is that ethical dilemmas are going to happen when you work in childcare. We work with the most vulnerable age groups. So you're going to come across them. Everyone's going to think they're right. And sometimes there's not always just a clear pathway. But just find the one that fits the best for the child. We have responsibilities to families, but our first responsibility is to the child in our care. And always, always, always involve your directors and keep the communication open, not only to them, but of course the parents. You just want everyone to be able to know what is kind of going on with their children, of course. And then your directors want to know what's going on with the children within their care. Thank you.